Hey you guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Roads Untraveled. Today here in front of me is a 2020 Honda Civic Sport Touring hatchback. This one's basically fully optioned out and it's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll go through all of the features, so let's check it out. All right, you guys, so the Sport Touring Civic hatchback is really a great option if you don't want the sedan, you don't want the two-door, and you actually do need a lot more space, but you don't want, a crossover or some of the other larger vehicles in Honda's lineup. So with the Sport Touring package, you get a bunch of stuff that we'll go over in the video over the LX and just Sport models. You get these black 18-inch wheels, you get LED everything, the headlights, and a bunch of interior features, including rear heated seats and a wireless charging pad. So let's get in the car and see how it drives. All right, you guys, welcome back to the channel. Here is a 2020 Honda Civic Sport Touring. So we figured we'd bring it out. One of the things first off that actually does increase the price and the MSRP of this vehicle is the fact that this one's been optioned with the Cvt transmission and not a proper manual transmission. So the good news is that yes, you can get the Civic Sport Touring hatchback in a manual still, and that is actually standard, but you can also have it optioned with the CVT, which costs a little bit more. Right off the bat, it has to be said with the manual, and this is from Honda, so this has a 1.5 liter direct injection inline 4 under the hood. It's turbocharged. It's a Honda Earth Dreams engine, right? So you do have 180 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque, but that torque figure is only when you option that manual transmission. So if you get the CVT and you get this top tier model, which comes out, according to Honda.ca, at $34,485, you actually lose 18 pound-feet of torque when comparing it to the manual transmission, but you're paying more for that. So it really just depends what you're into and what kind of driving you're going to be doing with the car. So since we are driving the CVT here, and we do have that 1.5 liter turbocharged engine, which is effectively just a detuned Civic Si motor, which is also the 1.5 liter. This has just been kind of down tuned to 180 horsepower, and that Si has 205 horsepower. Now, since we are with the CVT, we may as well try and squeeze as much fun out of it as possible. It does have a sport mode, and you can shift it down to sport mode by using this gear lever. And then from there, if you just leave it in auto, it will perform like a CVT. If you don't know what a CVT is, continuously variable transmission, you don't actually have gears in this car. So when you hit it in sport mode and you're using the paddles, the paddle shifters, then it will basically simulate what a normal transmission feels like. But in all honesty, it just does a terrible job of it. That being said, now I'm gonna stop right here, pretend that I've never driven a bunch of 1,000 horsepower cars, and we've never filmed a bunch of supercars, and I've never driven a 720S with an amazing dual clutch. And I'm just driving this car as if we're in a Civic Sport Touring, and I just bought this car to take my kids to school, to go run groceries, and to have a car that actually looks good. The Civic hatchback, especially in this black pearl color, just looks phenomenal. So just to demonstrate how a CVT kind of feels, they do feel smooth, and this one, it definitely feels smooth, does its job. But I'll just show you. I'll go full throttle in normal drive mode, not sport or anything, and we'll just see what it does. So it'll kind of climb up to 6,000 RPM, and it feels like it's making gear changes. It kind of actually simulates gear changes regardless of whether you're in sport or manual. They're just very kind of, you know, that kind of, it's, yeah. It's kind of a mix between like a modern transmission and like an old 4-speed auto. The engine's great though, I've got to say. Honda's done a magnificent job at creating an engine that, you know, has finally, you know, a real adequate torque figure and something that is definitely quick enough for your average Joe or any normal person driving one of these vehicles. It just has a great amount of power. The Civic hatch, I love it because it's trying to go up against the Subarus of the world and the slightly more kind of utilitarian, rugged kind of vehicles in terms of improving the space. And if you don't just want a traditional large sedan like, say, the Accord, which is definitely a lot larger than this, then you're going to want a little bit more room, and the Civic hatch accommodates the room. Now, I haven't looked at the exact volume, the interior storage volume of like a Fit versus the Civic hatch, but in terms of looks and styling, the Civic hatch looks phenomenal. So with the Sport Touring package, you also get those chrome exhaust tips at the end of the exhaust system back there, center exhaust, which looks kind of cool. Now, they haven't gone fully overboard on this model in projecting that it's a turbo, and they've got all these unnecessary badges. I love that Honda's kind of stuck and kind of just kept it subtle, and you don't really have to be all shouty about the fact that your car has a turbo now. It just works, and that's the thing. That's why people buy Civics. They just work. And yes, while at full throttle here, I can still have a fully relaxed conversation with you while we're heading down the road. That's not what people buying the Touring model of the Civic are, you know, this is exactly what they're looking for. And I think Honda's done a great job at catering to those people who still want a small vehicle. They don't want a crossover. They, like me, they don't want to be high up on the road with less visibility. I want to be able to be in a smaller vehicle that I can maneuver around and be a defensive driver versus being stuck in a larger vehicle that then everybody kind of has to avoid me, and I'm safer because it's bigger. There's still a huge market for the Civic, and I think Honda has absolutely proved that with this generation. Most of the Civics, in fact, I think all of the 2020 Civics actually have what Honda calls its Agile Handling Assist. So what this effectively is, and we're in sport mode now, so with the CVT, it's basically just able to hold the revs higher, and you're not constrained to, you know, what speed you're going and what gear you should be in for that speed. So it does have this Agile Handling Assist. Now, Marcus, what does that mean? So it's kind of like torque vectoring, but it's also not. It's essentially brake vectoring. It's a Honda's version of like a high performance brake vectoring system. And the way they put it, it's going to reduce the driver inputs that you need to have when you're driving a little bit more spirited. And it will kind of keep the car a little bit more under control. In my mind, what that means is, yes, for the average driver, it's going to keep you safer and the car is going to be more under control on the road. But for me, it just means if that's all on all the time and I really want to feel the actual physical limits and grip of the chassis, it's just going to be tougher to do so because you've got the inside brakes, for instance, in a corner slightly braking in order to keep the car rotating and on a path of balance rather than understeer or oversteer, which is great. I mean, it's going to keep the car more stable, more balanced, more of the time, and that's awesome. I'm glad Honda has it. And, you know, it makes the Civic feel very smooth. It makes it feel like a car that is more capable than it actually is. And then actually it kind of fits because you go look at the tires, and the tires are 235 section wide tires all the way around. over the 215s on the LX model. So you actually have way more physical grip on the Sport and the Touring models than you do on the LX.
All right, so to start off with, I have to say, I've always had a thing for hatchbacks. We live in the city, and you know what, for the most part, having an SUV or a truck is just impractical. However, with a hatchback, especially for doing the type of work we do, which is filming vehicles, it gives us a lot of options, including giving us more shooting capabilities, especially when you open up the back and can shoot straight out the hatch. Also, what's nice is whenever you go camping, you can just throw a mattress in the back and you don't have to bring a tent. So when we got this Honda Civic, I was really excited to see that it was a hatchback, and I could compare it to my car, which is a 2014 Mazda 3. But before we take a look at the interior, I want to show you a feature that seems to be on all modern Honda cars. And it's a feature that is quite unique, and I never see myself using this, but it's cool either way. All you have to do is double click the unlock button and hold it down, and it will automatically open every single window, including the sunroof in the car. Now, it's kind of an interesting feature. Unfortunately, if you want to put the windows back up, you cannot hit the lock button like for some reason you would automatically think that would do it. You have to manually take out the key from the fob, put it into the lock, and then turn it twice. So just pointing that out, it's, you know, nothing that you'd most likely ever use, but it's nice to have. So taking a look at the back here, the first thing you're going to notice is just how wide it is. You have a lot of storage space, and I think they did a great job utilizing every bit possible. Now, something that drives me insane with my car is having the privacy divider be so cumbersome. So with mine, if I need to fem out the back or put something a little bit of a bigger object in the trunk, I'm having to remove the card and then find an awkward place to put it somewhere. Now, Honda has found a way to avoid that entire headache by installing this retractable privacy cover. Now, this seems like a really brilliant option because, again, it's just this fabric material and it's easy to put in and easy to take out, so you're never having to deal with these big cards again. But anyways, let's hop inside and see what they've done with the interior. So as soon as you sit inside the Civic, the first thing that you notice is that they've done certain things really well, and then in other areas, they're still struggling. So to start off with some positives, I think they've done a great job utilizing some storage options in this vehicle. So for one thing that I absolutely love with a lot of newer vehicles is they use the center console here and they give you storage underneath. This is always really nice because it's not visible from outside the car, so you can leave valuables here without worrying about your car getting broken into. So looking down at this little compartment, you'll also notice you have this USB charger for your phone. Now this is a really brilliant idea that I think Hondas have here, because if you look above it, you have your wireless charging pad. But for certain phones that aren't compatible with wireless charging, they actually give you this cable management system. So what you're doing is you're plugging your cable in down here out of sight, and then just have the adapter that plugs into your phone up top. So it keeps things really nice and clean and simple. And you don't have cords running across the armrest or anything, which always drives me insane. Now for the charging pad, I'm happy to say it's a good size and it's very easy to use. We filmed a BMW in the past that had it such a tightly enclosed space around the charging pad itself that it made it really cumbersome to try to get the phone in and out. However, with this one, besides the fact that the shifter blocks it a little bit, I haven't really struggled too much. So looking at the other materials in this car, you'll notice that you have this nice soft touch plastic up at the top of the dash, as well as along the sides of the door. However, Honda seemed to have cheaped out, so to speak, when it comes to the back doors, because all you get is hard plastic. So it's the same texture. They're still trying to make it look like it's similar, but instead of doing the soft plastic, they went with the hard plastic in the back, which it's a little thing. I'm sure that's not gonna be a breaking point for anyone looking at buying this car. However, I think it's worth being said. So now coming back to the center console here, I have to say I'm really impressed to see what they've done for the different storage options and the functionality of this piece. So obviously, if you lift up the armrest, you have a couple little sliding trays up top, and then you have your 2 cup holders, which also slides back and forth. But let's say you have some bigger items you want to store in here, and you can't because of this cup holder. Well, that's okay, just wait, because Honda's thought of that. All you have to do is click the button, and these 2 cup holders come right out. So it gives you a lot of really deep storage options, especially for those bigger items. So now looking up from there, you have the infotainment system. And this is one of my biggest issues with the car. I really liked what Honda's been doing with refreshing and updating the interior and the overall presence of the vehicle. However, they constantly seem to overlook the basic thing like the infotainment. So to start off with, the software that's installed onto this system just looks out of date. It looks like it's 10 years old already, and it just doesn't seem very fluid. From there, if you put it into reverse, you have the backup camera that comes into play. Unfortunately, the resolution on this screen is so poor, and it drives me insane because, again, for about $20, you can get a dash cam with 1080p resolution. So there's no excuse why I should be getting a 2020 vehicle with a crappy camera like this. Now, the quality of the backup camera isn't the greatest. However, one upside is they've actually given you a blind spot camera, which actually comes in handy. So if you go look on the left side here by your signal and click the end of the button, you'll actually see on the screen, you'll have your blind spot camera open up. Now again, the resolution is very poor. However, it gives you quick access to give you visibility somewhere where you normally wouldn't have it. Now looking at the steering wheel, it's a nice simple design with easy to click buttons. It's nothing overly appealing, but everything is nice and streamlined and easy to access. So all in all, I have to say I am quite impressed with what the Civic has to offer. There's a lot of things that I think Honda's been overlooking in the last couple of years that I think they should start putting their attention towards. But as an overall package, I have to say I'm quite impressed. Everything is nice and solid, nothing seems to rattle, and everything else just seems like it was well designed. But anyways, let's hop back in the car with Marcus and finish up the review.
Yeah, despite all the aggressive driving, the spirited driving we've done, the gas needle has not moved. So we might just leave you with that. But the Civic does really well on all fronts. You also get these massive 18-inch wheels when you step up from the LX to the Sport and the Sport Touring. And you just get a lot of the creature comforts and leather and soft touch plastics on the front here that just make the Civic it's no longer, it doesn't have to be the ultimate low-end budget daily commuter anymore. It can be a vehicle that's still pretty fun to drive on a daily basis, albeit honestly, the CVT really takes away a lot of the fun. If this was a manual, we'd be having so much more fun right now. But that being said, 2020 Civic hatchback Sport Touring. Currently, I believe, at least in Canada, this is the most expensive Civic that you can get without getting the SI or the Type R. And in fact, you can get a base SI for less money than this and get 25 more horsepower. So it really depends what driving experience you're looking for. As you can see though, the CVT just, if I'm accelerating like that from 0 to 120 kilometers an hour, it'll just hold at 5,000 RPM and just be like, that's why I hate CVTs. If the engine noise wasn't so loud, then I would say it's fine, but in all honesty, there is quite a bit of engine noise coming from the Civic. Anyways, you guys, hopefully you enjoyed this review of the 2020 Civic hatchback Sport Touring. What a great vehicle. I love the black. I love the way it looks. And You know, you have tons of options with these cars, and I feel like if you're looking at a Civic hatch, the Sport Touring is absolutely a package that you should take into consideration. So until next time, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit us up on Instagram, where you can see kind of behind the scenes stuff and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. We've got a bunch more cars and modified car feature videos coming out very soon. You can check out our store as well at roadsuntraveled.com. Until next time, hope you enjoyed the video.